Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. If you're using this to fall asleep, get cozy, and relax, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Alright, let's get into the story. My mom walked out on us when I was 3. Just picked up one day and left. No explanation, no goodbye. For years, it was just me and my dad rattling around in our little world. I'm a guy, and back then I was a chubby kid, small for my age, still clinging to my baby fat. I was a nerd, still am, and so was my dad. We bonded over Star Wars, comic books, and science fiction, geeking out together in a way that made the absence of my mom feel a little less sharp. But as I got older, I could tell my dad was lonely. He'd been carrying the weight of raising me alone, and I think he missed having someone to share his life with. I was about 13 when he decided it was time to meet someone. I didn't mind the idea. I thought it'd be nice to have a mother figure, someone to fill the empty space in our house. This was before online dating, back when personals ads in the newspaper were still a thing. My dad wrote one, poured his heart into a few lines, and it wasn't long before he met Tammy. I still remember the way his face lit up when he told me about her, his eyes bright with a hope I hadn't seen in years. They dated for about a month before he decided things were getting serious. He wanted me to meet her to see if we could all fit together as a family. So he planned a big night out, dinner at Sizzler's, then a movie. I was nervous as hell. My grandma helped me get dressed, fussing over my shirt and hair, trying to make me look presentable. I wanted to make a good impression for my dad's sake. When we met Tammy, she seemed nice at first. She smiled, made small talk, asked me about school. But even at 13, I could sense something off, like a faint crack in her perfect act. We got to Sizzler's, and my dad told me to order whatever I wanted, his way of making the night special. Then he excused himself to the bathroom, leaving me alone with Tammy. I smiled, opened my mouth to say something, and she cut me off cold. Your dad's been letting you eat whatever you want, huh? Look at you, you're a fat little piggy. Then to my horror, she leaned in and made pig noises, winking right in my face. I was crushed. I wasn't that heavy, just a bit chubby, not like some kids you see today. And my dad didn't let me eat whatever I wanted. He was strict about junk food. But her words hit like a punch to the gut, and I sat there stunned as she smirked. When my dad came back, she flipped a switch, all sweet and charming again. I faked being nice for the rest of the night for his sake. I wanted to tell him what she said, but I couldn't bear the thought of disappointing him. My dad was my best friend, and seeing him happy meant everything to me. I hoped he'd see through her, that he'd realize what a cruel woman she was and come to his senses. But he didn't. They kept dating, and when I was 15, Tammy moved in. That summer, I finally shed my baby fat and shot up in height, almost 6 feet by the end of it, not surprising since my dad's 6'3". Puberty hit hard. My voice was cracking like a bad radio signal. I made it my mission to avoid Tammy as much as possible. I'd go to school, come home, do my homework in my room, and wait for my dad to get back from work. But Tammy had other plans. The second I walked through the door, she'd start in on me. You're a loser, she'd say. You're stupid, you'll never amount to anything. Just mean cutting things day after day. The few times I tried telling my dad, he'd brush it off, saying we all needed time to adjust. I didn't want to push it and make him feel caught in the middle, so I decided I'd tough it out for 3 more years until I could leave for college or wherever life took me. Those 3 years were hell. Tammy's insults got nastier, and she started doing things that were straight up sadistic. She'd slip pieces of glass, paper, or sand into my food. Just mine, never my dad's. I'd find it when I took a bite, my stomach turning as I realized what she'd done. I started refusing to eat anything she cooked, terrified she'd escalate to poison or worse. I'd make excuses, saying I wasn't hungry or I'd eaten at school, and I'd sneak snacks when she wasn't around. My dad didn't notice at first. He was too wrapped up in trying to make the relationship work. When I turned 18, they got married, and I felt my heart sink. But graduation was around the corner, and I had a plan. I'd enlisted in the Army, set ahead to basic training by July. It was my ticket out, my escape from her. Of course, Tammy tried to ruin that too. Right before I left, My recruiter got an anonymous call claiming I was smoking pot and doing drugs. I was furious but not surprised. I knew it was her. Thankfully, I passed the drug test with flying colors, and her plan backfired. The night before I shipped out for boot camp, my dad threw a huge party for me, inviting family and friends. Tammy tried to cancel it, claiming she was sick, but my dad had already sent out the invites, and the party went on. She sulked in a corner the whole time, pouting like a child. For the first time, I saw my dad starting to see through her facade, his smiles at her tinged with doubt. Fast forward a few years. I've been deployed twice and hadn't seen my dad in 22 months. I was dying to catch up with him, to sit down and talk like we used to. Over the phone, he hinted that his marriage to Tammy was falling apart. She wasn't just controlling and verbally abusive, she'd crossed a line. A few weeks before my leave, she hit him over the head with a cast iron skillet, knocking him out cold. He'd given her an ultimatum, get out within a month, or he'd throw her stuff to the curb. When I got home, my flight was delayed, and we didn't get back to the house until late. Tammy was supposedly staying at her sister's, moving her things out bit by bit. My dad and I ate a quiet dinner, catching up, and went to bed around 1 a.m. I was dead tired, crashing my old room, when I felt my bed shake. I thought it was Caesar, my dad's German shepherd, jumping up to sleep with me. Then I felt hands wrap around my neck, squeezing tight. My soldier instincts kicked in. I flipped the intruder over, pinning them to the floor, my heart pounding. My dad burst in, flipping on the light, his gun drawn. And there she was, Tammy, my stepmonster, sprawled under me, her face twisted in rage. My dad didn't hesitate. He called the police, filed a restraining order, and served her with divorce papers that same week. She didn't go quietly. She trashed his new Mercedes in a final act of spite, but I didn't care about the details. What mattered was that they were done, divorced. I never had to see that wretched woman again, and my dad was free of her. It wasn't a happy ending, but it was closure, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. It was a rainy night, back in the days before cell phones, and I was 18, trudging home from a brutal double shift at work. I live in a small town, the kind where everyone knows everyone, but that night felt lonely, the streets empty under the drizzle. I was exhausted, my uniform damp, my feet aching from hours on my feet. I still had a long walk ahead, and the rain wasn't letting up. That's when a car slowed beside me, an old, beat-up thing that looked like it had seen better days. The driver, an elderly man, leaned over and rolled down the window. "You all right out there, young lady?" he asked, his voice soft with concern. "It's no night to be walking alone. Can I give you a ride?" I hesitated. I'd been taught to be cautious, but he seemed harmless. Gray hair, a limp as he shifted in his seat, and a Bible sitting in the back seat, its worn cover catching the dim streetlight. Probably safe, right? I was so tired, and the idea of cutting my walk short was too tempting. "Okay," I said, forcing a smile. "Thanks." He got out, hobbling around to open the passenger door for me, explaining that it didn't open from the inside. That sent a tiny shiver down my spine, but I brushed it off. He was old, frail, and going to the trouble of helping me. Years of being a nice girl told me not to be rude, so I climbed in, the car smelling faintly of mildew and old leather. As we drove, he made small talk, his voice warm and polite. He complimented my uniform, said my hair looked nice, and told me I reminded him of his late wife. "Her spirit must have led me to you tonight," he said, his tone so sweet it almost felt rehearsed. I nodded, trying to stay polite, though something about his words felt off, like they were too polished. The conversation shifted to safer topics, whether I was still in school, what my hobbies were. I kept my answers short, hoping to keep things light. Then, out of nowhere, he asked, "Are you on your period right now?" I blinked, caught off guard, thinking maybe it was the setup for a joke. I laughed nervously and said, "Why would you want to know that?" His voice stayed calm, almost too calm as he answered, "Because if you're fertile, we should start trying for a family right away." My stomach dropped. The air in the car felt heavier, the rain outside louder. He kept talking, his words chillingly matter-of-fact. "God's kept me lonely for years, but now I see it. You look so much like my wife. It's clear you're meant to be mine, so we can start a new life together, have the children she couldn't give me. He grabbed my hand, his grip clammy, and kissed it, his eyes gleaming. I can't wait to show you our new bed. Panic surged through me, but I forced myself to stay calm. I had to get out of this car. Oh, I forgot something at work, I said, my voice shaking. Can we turn back? He shook his head, his smile tightening. You can get it tomorrow. I tried again, desperate. I need to pee, like, right now. He didn't even blink. You can hold it. My heart was pounding, but I could tell he wasn't going to let me out easily. He started rambling about how things were different back then, how men were the heads of households, how women were supposed to obey their fathers and husbands. God says this, God says that, he droned, his voice taking on a preachy edge. He talked about his wedding day, how his wife's father had given her to him like she was property. That gave me an idea. I remembered all those church sermons I'd sat through growing up, the ones about purity and marriage. I blurted out, "You're going to ask my father's permission to marry me, right? Before taking me to your home? God would want that. Otherwise, we'd be living in sin, and the marriage bed wouldn't be holy." I was grasping at straws, but it worked. His face twitched, offended. "Of course I know the Bible better than you," he snapped. "I'd ask your father." I seized the moment, keeping my voice steady. "Then we can't live together in sin. We need to go to my house first so you can talk to him. It's not far." I tried to sound light, even joking. "That's what a godly man would do, right?" He nodded, muttering about how he was a godly man, and I could feel the tiniest shift in his demeanor, like I'd gained a sliver of control. We were nearing the street I'd told him I lived on earlier. "Which house is your parents'?" he asked, slowing the car. My mind raced. I didn't live with my parents, I lived alone, but I couldn't let him know that. I pointed to a random house number far down the street, one I knew wasn't mine. "That one," I said. "Just drop me there." He pulled over, but he wasn't ready to let me go. "I'll come inside with you," he said, his tone firm. I shook my head, forcing a smile. "I need to tell my parents first. Let them know God sent me a husband. It'll take a few days. Come back tomorrow." He frowned, suspicious. "I'll give you a few minutes, but then we need to be on our way." My heart sank. He wasn't leaving. I had to think fast. "Just drive around a block," I said, trying to sound casual. "I need time to pack my clothes." He studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. He got out, limping to open the door, and I stepped onto the wet pavement, my legs trembling. I walked to the house's front door, waving at him like everything was fine, praying he'd drive off. As soon as his car turned the corner, I sprinted, not to the house I'd pointed to, but to my real place a few streets away. I double-bolted the door, shoved the couch against it, and collapsed, my breath ragged. I never saw him again, but I didn't take any chances. I didn't call the police, though I wish I had. I was too shaken, too focused on staying safe. A few days later, I moved in with my boyfriend. I insisted on waiting at work every night until he could pick me up. No more walking home alone. That night left a mark, a reminder of how quickly kindness can turn sinister, and I promised myself I'd never ignore my gut again. Just a few nights ago, I had an experience that left me rattled, my nerves still frayed as I try to piece it together. I'm a female bartender at a small cafe that doubles as a venue in our little town. By day, we serve coffee and lunch, the kind of place where locals chat over sandwiches. At night, we transform into a full bar, hosting bands, comedy shows, and open mic nights. That night, it was an open mic comedy show, but barely any comedians showed up. The crowd was thin, and the jokes fell flat, so we decided to close up early. I was ready to lock the doors, clean up, and head home to crash. As the night wound down, I noticed a guy who'd come in earlier, ordering a single beer during the show. He sat alone, sipping slowly, his eyes darting around like he was nervous. I'm used to shy customers. Being a female bartender, you get guys who clam up around women, so I didn't think much of it. He watched the comedy, kept to himself, and didn't make trouble. But something about him stuck with me, a quiet unease I couldn't shake. When the last few patrons trickled out, I started my closing routine, eager to get out of there. I escorted the final couple to the door, locked it behind them, and turned to head back to the bar. That's when I saw him, the guy from earlier, slipping down the back hallway toward the men's restroom. I froze, my heart picking up speed. I hadn't realized he was still here. Less than a minute later, the restroom door swung open, and he came charging out, yelling, "Hurry, come back here. I need help." His voice was urgent, almost frantic. I stayed put at the far end of the hallway, about 20 feet away, and called out, "What's wrong?" He didn't stop moving, his eyes locked on me. "The toilet's overflowing. There's water all over the floor. Please, help me clean it up." Something about his tone felt wrong, too rehearsed, like he was trying to sell me on it. My gut screamed that this was a trap. "It's okay," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Stuff like that happens. I'll handle it later. I'm just trying to close up right now." He didn't like that. His face hardened, and he started arguing, insisting I come to the bathroom with him. "No, you need to help me now," he said, his voice rising. I held my ground, repeating that I'd deal with it after closing. He kept pushing, his words sharp and demanding, until he suddenly stormed toward me, his steps aggressive. Before I could react, he reached out to grab my arm. Instinct kicked in. I threw my hands up, palms out, creating a barrier between us. "You need to leave," I said, my voice firm, though my heart was pounding. He glared at me for a moment, then turned and walked out. I rushed to the door, locked it behind him, and took a shaky breath, trying to calm myself. I decided to check the bathroom, just to be sure. I pushed open the door, half expecting a mess, but it was spotless. No water on the floor, no overflow. I flushed the toilet and checked the urinal. Both worked perfectly. My stomach twisted. He'd lied, and I knew exactly why. He wanted me in that bathroom, alone, for reasons that made my skin crawl. I went back to my closing tasks, but I was on edge now. I clipped my large pocket knife to the waistband of my pants, its weight a small comfort, and kept it close as I cleaned the espresso machine and put stoppers on the liquor bottles. Then I heard it, a faint tapping noise. I looked up, my eyes darting to the front of the store, where a big window stretched across the wall, partially covered by curtains. There he was, the same guy, standing outside, tapping on the glass. He waved at me, his face split into a manic grin, his eyes wild. My blood ran cold. He moved to the door and yanked on the handle, but it held fast, locked tight from when I'd let him out. Then he started screaming, his voice muffled but venomous. "Open the damn door. I'm gonna kill you." He pounded on the glass, the sound echoing in the empty bar. I stood there, frozen for a second, my mind racing. Then survival mode took over. I stepped out from behind the counter, moving about 6 feet from the door. I pulled out my knife, holding it steady, and locked eyes with him through the glass. "I'm calling the cops," I shouted, my voice cutting through his rant. "Get the hell out of here." He stopped pounding, his smile twisting into something darker, and then he walked out of view, disappearing into the night. My adrenaline crashed, leaving me trembling. I bolted to the office, locked myself inside, and dialed 911. I explained everything, that I was alone, that a man had tried to lure me into the bathroom, that he was outside threatening me. The operator promised to send someone, but I waited an hour and a half and no police ever showed up. I sat there, clutching my phone, jumping at every sound, until I couldn't take it anymore. I called my boyfriend, my voice shaking as I told him what happened. He dropped everything and drove to the shop, staying on the phone with me the whole way. My manager, who'd been watching the security cameras from home, called to check in, making sure the guy didn't come back. I finished the deposit, my hands unsteady, and locked up the bar. My boyfriend followed me home, his car close behind mine, and I didn't relax until I was inside with the door bolted. The next day, my male busboy started coming in to work with me, ensuring I wasn't alone. My managers have been keeping a close eye on the security feeds while I'm on shift, and I've been hypervigilant, scanning every face that walks through the door. I'm still shaken, the memory of that guy's grin burned into my mind, but I'm not letting it stop me. I'll keep working, keep living, but I'm not taking any chances, not after that night. This happened earlier this week in a beach town along Central Florida's coast. and it still got me rattled. Surfing is my life, my escape, my therapy. If I go a few days without hitting the waves, I feel like I'm crawling out of my skin. My work schedule's been brutal lately, with late-night shifts that have me dragging home around 4 a.m. I live right on the beach, and over the past year, I've fallen into a routine. I get home, scarf down a bowl of cereal, grab my board, and head out to surf by 4:30 a.m. It's still dark then, but the moonlight and the glow from the pier usually light up the waves enough to see. I'll surf for a couple of hours, catch the sunrise, then crash until it's time for work again. Most mornings, the beach is deserted for that first hour, maybe a jogger or two, but otherwise, it's just me and the ocean. That morning started like any other. I paddled out, staying close to the pier where the waves are usually solid. But the rip current was strong, pulling me along the shore. On days like that, I don't fight it. I let it carry me until I hit my marker about half a mile down from the pier, then paddle back to shore and walk back to my starting point. As I was floating out there, waiting for the next set of waves, I noticed something on the beach, the silhouette of someone standing still watching me. I couldn't make out details, just a dark figure against the faint glow of the sand. It didn't faze me much at first. People sometimes stop to watch surfers, curious about the guy crazy enough to be out in the dark. I shrugged it off and kept surfing, focusing on the rhythm of the waves. About 45 minutes later, the current had tugged me to my marker, and I started paddling in. As I got closer to shore, I glanced over and saw what I thought was the same figure, still there, lingering in the shadows. That struck me as odd. I'd been out for a while, drifting a good distance down the beach, and this person had apparently followed along the whole time, keeping pace. I hit the shore, shook the water from my hair, and stole a quick look in their direction. It was a guy, husky, maybe 40-ish, wearing shorts and a ratty red 49ers shirt. He was about 15 feet away, half hidden in the dark, just standing there. Unease prickled at the back of my neck, but I didn't want to overreact. I started walking briskly back toward the pier, my board tucked under my arm, heading for the beach access ramp near my place. I could hear his footsteps in the sand, keeping a steady distance behind me. To test him, I sped up, then slowed down, listening for his pace to change. It did. He matched me every time, always staying about 15 feet back. He didn't say a word, and neither did I, but it was clear he was following me. My heart started to pound, but I kept moving, my eyes scanning for the ramp. When I finally reached it, I turned around to check, and he was gone. Just vanished. I figured he must have ducked behind one of the hotel stairwells lining the beach, but I wasn't about to go looking. I chalked it up to some local weirdo, maybe one of the homeless guys who hung around the area, or just an eccentric drawn to the beach at odd hours. The town attracts all types. I pushed it out of my mind and headed home, convincing myself it was nothing. End of story, right? Not quite. The next morning, I was back at it, same routine. It was overcast, the sky darker than usual, and I hit the beach around 4:45 a.m. The swells were light, so I stayed close to the pier, floating on my board, letting the gentle waves rock me. That uneasy feeling crept in again, like I was being watched. I scanned the beach and the pier, trying to shake it off, but my eyes caught something. A lone figure standing above me on the pier, backlit by the faint lights, his outline sharp against the sky. I couldn't tell if he was a fisherman. No pole, no gear, just standing there motionless. I paddled into a wave, glancing back as I rode it, and saw him toss something into the water. I didn't think much of it at first, maybe trash or bait, but a few minutes later, I caught him doing it again, lobbing something else into the sea. When I looked directly at him, he froze, like he didn't want me to notice. Now I was curious and a little uneasy. The sky was starting to lighten, giving me a better view. Another set of waves rolled in, and as I paddled into one, I kept my eyes on him over my shoulder. The second my attention seemed to shift, he tossed several more objects into the water, moving quickly, like he was trying to hide it. But when I turned back, he stopped dead, staring at me. That's when it hit me, he was chumming the water, throwing chunks of meat into the sea right where I was surfing. Big pieces, not the kind you'd use for small fish. You chum to attract bigger catches, sharks, especially in dark water like this, 150 yards offshore. And this guy had no fishing gear. He wasn't here to fish. He was trying to draw something to me. Fear and anger surged through me, a hot mix that made my hands shake. I started paddling hard toward shore, keeping my movements steady to avoid looking panicked. He dropped all pretense, dumping an entire bucket over the pier's edge and turning to walk back toward the shore. I hit the beach, my board under my arm, and moved toward the pier stairwell, my blood boiling. I'm no punk. I've been in my share of scraps and don't usually back down from a fight. I wanted to confront this guy, demand to know what the hell he was doing putting me in danger like that. As I got closer, he came down the stairs, heading in my direction, and I finally got a good look at him. Husky, red 49er shirt, same ratty shorts. It was the guy from yesterday. A cold feeling washed over me, stronger than my anger. Something told me to get out of there, that this wasn't a fight I should pick. I'm not the toughest guy, but I can hold my own, yet every instinct screamed to walk away. I changed course, veering toward the beach access ramp instead, my heart hammering. He followed, keeping about 10 feet behind, his footsteps heavy in the sand. The only sound was the waves crashing, the steady rhythm underscoring our silent, low-speed chase across the beach. I reached the ramp, which has a sharp 90-degree turn halfway up, leading to a long walkway between two condo buildings that connects to the street. As soon as I hit the turn and broke his line of sight, I bolted, sprinting to the far end of the walkway, putting as much distance between us as I could. I stopped at the end, my breath ragged, torn between confronting him and listening to my gut. I waited, peering back toward the ramp. He appeared at the 90-degree bend, pausing, just staring at me. We locked eyes in silence, the moment stretching out, heavy and tense. After what felt like forever, probably 20 seconds, he reached into his waistband, pulled out something that glinted in the dim light. A knife, its blade catching the glow of a nearby street lamp. He waved at me with his other hand, letting out a short, sharp laugh that cut through the quiet, then spun on his heels and disappeared back down the ramp. That was it for me. I took a roundabout route home, doubling back to make sure he wasn't tailing me, my eyes scanning every shadow. I haven't seen him since, but I also haven't been back to the beach in a few days. The thought of him out there, watching, waiting, chumming the water to lure sharks while I'm alone in the dark, it's got me spooked. I keep replaying it, wondering what he wanted, why he targeted me. Was he just a creep looking to scare someone, or was it something worse? I don't know, but I'm not taking chances. When I go back, I'll be watching my back, and I'm not surfing alone at dawn anytime soon. It's 2025 now, but back in 1997, I was 53, reeling from a messy divorce and ready for a fresh start. I decided to leave California and move back to my hometown in North Carolina, where my sister still lived. She suggested I talk to her husband, Steve, about a rental house he owned. Steve was thrilled at the idea, offering me an absurdly low monthly rate for a place he described as a gem despite its rough neighborhood. The house was old, built in 1910, which made me wary. Visions of creaky floors and drafty windows flashed through my mind. But Steve was quick to reassure me, listing all the renovations he'd done in recent years. New wiring, updated plumbing, fresh paint. He promised to fix anything I found lacking. He mentioned the house had trouble keeping tenants because of the seedy area and past complaints about unexplained intrusions, but he'd installed new locks and an alarm system to solve that. Plus, there was a small, freshly renovated guest house on the property, occupied by his friend Jake, who'd keep an eye on things. As a sweetener, he waived the first month's rent since I was family. It sounded like a solid deal, especially since I was low on cash and still jobless. I accepted, grateful for the lifeline. 2 weeks later, I packed my van and drove cross-country, the road stretching out like a promise of something better. The trip was uneventful, and I pulled up to my sister's house in early December, welcomed by a warm homecoming. I'd forgotten how brutal East Coast winters could be after years in California, so my first priority was buying a heavy winter coat. I also needed basic household items I couldn't fit in the van. My sister donated a bed and a dining table, and a quick shopping trip covered the rest: pots, pans, linens, the essentials. It was late afternoon when we headed to the rental house, my van loaded with my meager belongings. The street was a strange mix, bright and tidy near my sister's place, but growing gloomier the closer we got to my new home. Even from a distance, the house loomed large, a two-story rectangle with its short southern end facing the street. It sat elevated, connected to the sidewalk by two steep flights of white stone steps, like something out of an old New York brownstone. My sister pointed out the fresh yellow exterior paint, but my eyes were drawn to the front door, shrouded in the shadow of a full-length porch overhang. 6 large panes of clear glass dominated the door's center, glinting faintly. "Won't that glass make it easy for someone to break in?" I asked, half joking. She smiled, unfazed. "No one's ever broken in through that door. It's tougher than it looks." She handed me the keys, and I unlocked it, stepping into a long hallway bathed in dim light. She flipped on the interior lights, revealing a door to my left that led to a downstairs front bedroom, and at the hall's end, doors to the left and right, plus a staircase heading up. The hardwood floors were painted a garish teal, sealed with a glossy finish. Steve didn't want to refinish them, so he just painted them, my sister explained. I ran my hand over the vintage doorframe to the bedroom, noting the intricate scrollwork and medallions slathered in thick white paint. It felt like a shame to cover such craftsmanship. We moved to the alarm box near the entrance, and she punched in a code. "There are motion detectors in the hall, each room, and at the top of the stairs," she said. "You can activate them at night if you're upstairs, but you've got 30 seconds to disarm them when you come in, or the security company gets a call." My keyring held keys to the rental door locks on the 2 downstairs bedrooms, which she said were cleaned and ready for future tenants. "Just keep them locked," she added. We continued through the hallway to the formal dining room, big enough for a banquet, where she planned to set up her donated table. Through a doorway on the right wall, we entered the kitchen, a massive space clearly built for a large family back in the day. "You could cook Thanksgiving dinner in here," I said, and she nodded, pointing to an open door opposite the kitchen entrance. "That leads to the downstairs suite, second bedroom, laundry room, and bathroom." A brick propped the door open. "Leave that brick alone," she said. "It keeps the door open so warm air circulates and prevents the pipes from freezing." I nodded, already imagining the hassle of a burst pipe in winter. Upstairs, there were 2 more bedrooms, the larger one with an attached bathroom. "I thought this would be perfect for you," my sister said, and I agreed. It was a cozy setup with plenty of space for my things. She seemed pleased, and we headed back to her place to finish moving me in the next day. As we drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong with the house. I'd read stories about haunted houses, where happy families move in and slowly uncover dark secrets. My experience was the opposite. From the moment we pulled up, I felt eyes on us, watching from the upstairs window. As we toured the house, I sensed something moving with us, always just out of sight, careful not to reveal itself. I could pinpoint its presence, like a shadow shifting from room to room, especially when it lingered nearby, observing me. The house had an oppressive silence, a heavy stillness that wasn't just quiet. It was suffocating. This wasn't a happy home, and in my bleak post-divorce state, that suited me fine. I wasn't looking for joy, just a place to exist. I'm a practical man, not one for ghost stories, though I know the supernatural is real. My late uncle once told me spirits feed on fear, playing games if you let them sense it. I'd had 2 minor encounters with spirits before, but those are stories for another time. In that neighborhood, I was more worried about carjackings, robberies, or break-ins than some ghost. Still, I felt the presence from day one and hoped it would keep its distance. I settled in, found a job at a local printing company a mile away, and threw myself into work, racking up overtime to catch up on bills. When the work slowed, I spent more time at home, and that's when the quiet started to break. One night, I was dozing in my upstairs bedroom when I heard heavy footsteps downstairs, pacing down the entry hall. My heart jumped, but I stayed still, listening. The steps grew louder, then started climbing the staircase, slow and deliberate. I grabbed my baseball bat and crept to the top of the stairs, flicking on a light. The staircase was empty, but I felt the presence halfway up, like a weight in the air. I stared at the spot, fear mixing with anger. "Look," I said, my voice sharp. "I don't care who you are. Stop stomping around and screwing with me. We both live here, and I don't give a damn about your sad story. Just leave me alone." I stormed back to my room, slammed the door, and waited. The house stayed quiet the rest of the night. When the sun rose, I felt a smug sense of victory, like I'd won a standoff. I learned later how wrong I was. Once the spirit knew I could sense it, it started playing games, subtle but relentless. Almost daily, I'd come home to find a brick propping open the downstairs suite door moved to the center of the kitchen, the door shut tight. It only happened when I was at work, never when I was home. I tried propping the door with other objects, a book, a chair, but they'd end up in the kitchen too, the brick always there mocking me. I worried about the pipes freezing, checking them obsessively. About twice a week, Steve would call, saying the downstairs motion detector had tripped, and the security company needed an all clear. Anyone else have a key? He'd ask. Anyone visiting? No, I'd say every time. The alarm company inspected the system, found nothing wrong, but the calls kept coming until Steve finally turned the system off, frustrated. I'm a light sleeper, so one Saturday morning, I woke to the sound of my bedroom door creaking open. It was just past dawn, the room softly lit. I lifted my head, blinking, and saw the old lady from next door standing there, watching me. She was a drunk, always on her porch with a brown bag bottle, staring at passing cars, never speaking. But now she spoke. "What the hell are you doing here?" I snapped, jumping out of bed. "I knocked to borrow $5, she slurred, "and the man said to go upstairs and ask you." My blood ran cold. "What man?" I demanded. "I don't know, ain't seen him before," she said. "Can I borrow $5? "No, get out," I shouted, herding her downstairs and out to the porch, my heart pounding. The next day, calmer, I offered her the $5 if she'd tell me about this man. "Like I said, ain't seen him before," she said. About 70, blue eyes, blue pants, long sleeve blue shirt, collar buttoned up. White hair, mostly bald. I asked for $5, and he smiled, said his tenant was upstairs, and let me in. Shut the door, and that's the last I saw him. "Can I have my money?" I handed her the bill, a chill settling in. "If you see him again, let me know." By mid-1997, I had some money saved and splurged on a 50-inch projection TV and a new DVD player. Big deal back then. 2 delivery guys hauled a 200-pound beast upstairs to the empty second bedroom, where I set it up with a used recliner, creating my entertainment room. A week later, Jay called me at work during an evening shift. "Dude, your TV's blasting the house," he said. "I went outside to see where the noise was coming from. Saw it on through your upstairs window. I was going to knock and ask you to turn it down, but your car's gone." "Holy crap, someone's broken in." My stomach dropped. "They're still in there," he said. "Stay outside, keep an eye on the front." "I'm coming." I raced home in 3 minutes, pulling up to find Jake watching the door. "This is weird, man," he said. "As soon as I heard your car, the TV light cut off. I told him to guard the back door while I went in through the front. I unlocked the door, the house dead quiet. I hit the hall light switch, nothing. The breaker had tripped. I pulled out my cigarette lighter, its tiny flame barely cutting the dark, and crept toward the laundry room's fuse box. Every step felt like a gamble, my mind conjuring images of some lunatic waiting to jump me. I cursed myself for not calling the cops, but in that neighborhood, they'd take an hour to show up. I reached the fuse box, reset the breaker, and the lights flickered on. I let Jake in, and we searched every inch of the house, closets, under beds, behind doors. Nothing. Jake was shaken. "Someone was here, I swear," he said, staring at me. I wasn't convinced either. Steve had installed security bolts on all the windows, hex nuts that needed a wrench to remove. No way a random intruder brought a toolbox. The TV stayed off, silent, like it had never been touched. One evening, after a grueling work week, I stopped at an ATM on my way home, withdrawing $80 in cash to pay my electric bill the next day. I tucked the 4 $20 bills into my wallet, double-checking they were there. The next morning, I was at the utility company handing over my bill when I opened my wallet, the cash. I stepped out of line, bewildered, and drove back to the ATM, then to the bank. They confirmed I'd withdrawn the money. I tore my house apart, checking pockets, drawers, the floor. Nothing. I was sure I'd lost it somehow, kicking myself for being careless. 3 weeks later, getting ready for a date, I opened my sock drawer for a fresh pair. There, at the bottom, was a $20 bill, perfectly straight. I lifted another sock, then another, and found all 4 $20 bills, neatly lined up across the drawer's base. I'd done laundry the day before, emptied that drawer, and there was no money then. I was furious, not just at the prank, but at the violation. Something had been in my space, toying with me. Each of the house's 4 bedrooms had a fireplace, converted to gas logs since there was no central heating. I used them as space heaters in winter, each one powerful enough to warm the house if cranked up. One frigid January night, I had the fireplace in my bedroom running at medium, the room toasty as I drifted off. I woke up in the middle of the night, shivering, my breath fogging in air. The fireplace was still hissing, flames dancing, but the room was ice cold. I checked for drafts, held my hand near the fire. Heat only inches from the flames, nowhere else. As I stood there, confused, a sudden wave of warmth flooded the room, like the heat had been trapped and abruptly released. Within minutes, the room was warm again, normal. I climbed back into bed, unsettled, but too tired to dwell on it. 3 months into my stay, I met the woman who'd become my wife. She visited the house a few times, but always felt uneasy, preferring I come to her place. "Your house feels like it's staring at me," she said once, and I didn't argue. When we decided to move in together, we chose a new apartment central to our jobs. Her lease was up first, so she had to move into the rental with me for a few weeks while we waited for my lease to end. She wasn't thrilled, and I noticed she was never alone in the house. One afternoon, about a week before we were set to move, I came home and found her sitting in her car at the curb, her eyes red like she'd been crying. I knocked on her window and she stepped out, hugging me tightly. I scanned the street for trouble, but it was quiet. "What's wrong?" I asked, practically begging her to tell me. She wouldn't say much, only that she'd gone inside 40 minutes earlier, then came back out to wait for me. I pressed, asking if something had scared her, but she shook her head, saying only that she'd never be alone in the house again. She'd stay at her office until I was home. To this day, she won't tell me what happened that afternoon. Moving day came, and we were exhausted by the end, our stuff packed into the new apartment. One task remained, cleaning the rental before returning the keys to Steve. My girlfriend suggested waiting until morning, but I was determined to be done with the place. I drove over that evening, spending hours scrubbing floors, wiping surfaces, leaving the house cleaner than when I'd moved in. I packed my cleaning supplies in the trunk and walked back up the steps for one last look. Standing in the doorway, I felt compelled to say something. "Hey," I said to the empty house, "I'm moving out now. Can't say it's been fun, but it's been a home, I guess. Goodbye." I locked the door, turned, and glanced up as I walked to my car. In the second-floor window, I saw the faint outline of someone peering down at me, my first and last glimpse of whatever shared that house with me. I drove away, my chest tight, and I've avoided that neighborhood ever since, the memory of that figure etched in my mind. Our night of urban exploration started with a thrill, but it ended in dread that still lingers. My friends A and B and I had been planning this for weeks, drawn to an abandoned compound on the edge of town, a sprawling, decaying complex that might have been a school or an institution in its heyday. It loomed over the landscape, its silhouette jagged against the night sky, promising secrets and adrenaline. We were no strangers to exploring forgotten places, but this one felt different from the start, heavier, like it was watching us as we approached. As we reached the entrance, we noticed what we'd thought was a gaping black hole was actually a generator room, its wooden gate smashed by vandals, revealing a void within. The darkness seemed to swallow our flashlight beams, and the air carried a faint hum of neglect. We had 2 options to enter the main building: the front double doors leading to what looked like a grand foyer, or a crooked wooden door at the far end of the generator room. The foyer felt more inviting, safer. Navigating the generator room would have meant dodging machinery, risking a twisted ankle or worse in the tight, shadowy space. The generator itself was massive, far bigger than needed for a single building, suggesting it once powered other parts of the compound. I imagined it roaring with purpose back when the place was alive, but now it sat silent, frozen in the dark, a relic of a forgotten era. We chose the foyer, stepping through the double doors into a space that was both awe-inspiring and unsettling. The room was vast, its high ceiling lost in shadow, but the low light from our torches painted a grim picture. To the left, a corridor stretched behind two doors with circular, submarine-like windows. At the back right, another corridor yawned open, no doors to guard it, just an endless black tunnel. The staircase rose immediately to our left, its banisters replaced with windows that let you peer up into the inky darkness of the upper floors. On the right, a smaller room held rows of hooks, likely a security station where keys for the compound's many locked doors once hung. The air was thick with the stench of decay, mold, rot, and something sharper like death. I wondered how many pigeons had nested here, only to die in the walls. I took the lead, crossing the foyer to peer through the circular windows of the left corridor. The paint on the walls was peeling in long, curling strips, and the carpet had liquefied into a gloopy mess, squelching under my boots. The smell was overpowering, a pungent mix of damp and decay that made my eyes water. Beyond the windows, the corridor opened into another large room, its features barely discernible in the gloom. A metal blind ran along one wall, and a door with a glass panel stood at the far end. It had all the hallmarks of a school canteen, long tables, maybe a serving line hidden in the shadows. I turned to check on A and B, but my gaze caught on the open corridor at the back right. Even with my torch, it was a void, an endless black hole that seemed to eat the light. A chill ran through me, a primal urge to stay away. I didn't want to go down there, and I didn't have to. I could feel its wrongness from where I stood. A and B were close behind, their faces tense, mirroring my unease. The darkness in this place was denser than anything we'd encountered, pressing against us like a physical weight. I'd already scoped out the canteen room and saw no immediate threats, so I pushed open the double doors, leading the way. A and B followed, instinctively forming a triangular formation, covering all angles in case something or someone crept up on us. Inside, my suspicions were confirmed, a sign above the metal blinds read "Kitchen Staff Only." The room was cavernous, its large windows revealing the stark contrast between the pitch-black interior and the faintly lit world outside. Even with our torches, visibility was a struggle, the beams barely cutting through the murk. As I scanned the windows for any sign of movement outside, B let out a sharp gasp, freezing us all. A and I rushed over, our torches illuminating what had spooked him. 3 straight slash marks carved into the metal blinds, deep and precise, resembling the mocking of the Trinity, a symbol I'd seen on paranormal shows, supposedly a demonic mark meant to taunt the Holy Trinity. B ran his fingers along the slashes, then yanked his hand back, his face paling. "The metal's hot," he said, his voice tight. "Really hot." My stomach twisted. We'd been exploring for hours. For the blinds to still be warm, those marks had to have been made recently, while we were here. A wave of dread washed over us, the darkness seeming to thicken, closing in. We stood there, torches sweeping the room, searching for the slightest movement, every nerve on edge. Whoever or whatever made those marks was likely still nearby. Had they seen us? Were they watching us now, hidden in the shadows? The same thoughts raced through all our minds, but none of us spoke, the silence heavy with fear. I forced myself to check behind the blinds, hoping for a logical explanation, a heater, a pipe, anything. I stepped cautiously to the kitchen door, shining my light inside. Cooking equipment littered the room, rusted stoves, dented pots, but nothing touched the blinds. I tried the door, but it was locked tight. No wires, no heat source, nothing to explain the warmth. My dread deepened, and I turned back to A and B, who were staring at me, their eyes wide. I hadn't warned them I was moving to the door, and I could see the question in their faces. "What the hell are you doing?" I motioned for us to head back to the foyer, my gesture sharp. No words were needed, we all wanted out of that room. Back in the foyer, we stood in silence, the weight of what we'd seen pressing down on us. Our eyes drifted to the dark corridor opposite the canteen, the one that felt like a black hole. I knew I wasn't going down there, and from the looks on A and B's faces, they weren't either. The silence stretched until it broke it, his voice unsteady. "Take a picture of me," he said. "For a souvenir." I raised an eyebrow. Here? Now? He nodded, insisting it'd take less than a minute. Against my better judgment, I agreed. He posed in front of the canteen doors, trying to look brave, but his eyes betrayed his fear. I adjusted my camera for the dim light, steadying my hands. The first shot was blurry. I moved too fast. I motioned for A to hold still and took another, focusing hard. My breath held. Just as the flash went off, a deafening boom echoed through the building, coming from nowhere and everywhere. We froze, our heads whipping around, searching for the source. Another thud followed, then another, each one louder, heavier, like massive footsteps directly above us. My heart pounded as I turned to B, who was near the stairs, his pupils dilated with shock. He looked up, and a final bone-rattling thud from the top of the stairs snapped us out of our trance. Flight mode kicked in. I don't think I've ever run so fast, my legs pumping as I bolted for the exit, A and B right behind me. Time seemed to slow, my mind racing through every moment of the night, the compound's oppressive presence, the strange man we'd seen at the gate earlier, the police tape we'd ignored, the bloodstains we'd dismissed. I remembered the pigeon that had startled me in another building, the creepy ladder, the moment I thought I heard voices when I was alone. And that sinister laughter. I convinced myself it was my imagination, but now I wasn't so sure. We burst out of the compound, stumbling into the open air, the silence outside almost as eerie as the noises within. We stopped, panting, and turned to stare back at the building. Nothing moved, no one followed, but I still felt watched, the hairs on my neck standing up. The sea nearby was still, its usual rhythm muted. I crumpled to the ground, crouching with his hands tucked into his legs, his massive 6'6" frame trembling. He looked broken, the worst off of us. Fear had consumed him, and he started sobbing, his deep voice cracking as he shouted about the terrifying thoughts flooding his mind. "Make them stop," he pleaded, looking at B and me. I'd never seen a man his size cry like that, inconsolable, his strength shattered. B and I knelt beside him, trying to calm him, reassuring him we were safe now, that we'd made it out. It took 15 minutes to get him steady enough to stand, breaths ragged but slowing. We began the long walk home as the sun started to rise, painting the sky in soft pinks and golds. The journey was quiet, each of us lost in our thoughts. I kept replaying the night, the loose ends nagging at me. What were those thuds? Where had that laughter come from? The marks on the blinds, the locked kitchen door, the oppressive darkness. It all felt unfinished, like the compound wasn't done with us. I glanced at A, his face still pale, his eyes distant. I'd never seen him like this, and it worried me. He was the strongest of us, the one who laughed off danger, but that place had broken him. As the sun climbed higher, I realized this wasn't the end of the story. Something about that night felt like it was following us, a shadow we couldn't shake. I still worry about what that place did to him, and I can't shake the feeling that things took a darker turn after we left. That compound is one place I won't be returning to, not for a long time, if ever.